What is up, good people of America? It's your boy Atypical Security Guard. Tonight I want to talk about childhood trauma and the fear of failure. I just recently finished my classes. I submitted all of my finals and stuff last week, and then just yesterday I got word that my grades had all posted, and finally, after 28 years after graduating high school, I am a college graduate. You know, a lot of people, they grow up in situations where your household and your home life is not perfect. And although I was not in a horrible childhood, my parents were going through things, right? And as I look back, being a kid, definitely like as I was, approaching like graduating high school, my family was just going through so much turmoil. My parents were on their way to divorcing. My mom was dealing with depression. She had a horrible situation going on. And at the end of the day, man, when it got to the point for me to graduate, like my parents didn't put any time or effort into, preparing me to move on into the next phase of life. So I ended up just joining the military because I needed to get away. I just had to get out of the situation. It was a rough situation. So as I'm about to experience this graduation from college, I went back to college 3 times. This was the third attempt. The last 2 times, I've enrolled, I've gone to the actual school, and I've always done good. I was never good in high school, but I've always done well. The other 2 times that I went back to college, I was successful. I got good grades, but I have this like self-defeating, self-sabotaging way about me. It doesn't matter what I've done in life. I've been very successful. I've had businesses, relationships, anything and everything. And I always find a way to sabotage myself. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, you did it. You finally went back to school. You finally have put yourself in a position to graduate. You're going to have your degree after all this time. And it just made me like reflect on all of the past failure. And I can tie it all to one traumatic experience where everything was wrapped together, right? Failure, disappointment, self-sabotage. And I wanted to share that story with you guys today because I think that like by proving to myself that I could graduate, which is like such a small thing, people graduate from college all the time. It's not that big of a deal, right? But this has been something that's been hanging over my head. So when I was like 10 or 11, 12-ish, I guess, I played tennis. I was a competitive tennis player. I actually was like number 2 in my state, and I was ranked regionally. Like I was extremely good at tennis. Now you got to remember my parents, like they were first generation middle class. Like my parents, they came up under Jim Crow in Arkansas. They went to segregated schools. So for me, like being that first generation family member that's growing up in middle class and like having access to things like gymnastics and swimming and tennis, that was foreign for my parents because they didn't have access to that when they were kids. Like legally, it wasn't something that they would have access to. So me being involved in tennis and me being so good at it and me being like regionally ranked, like my parents took pride in that. They took pride in the fact that, they were living in a white neighborhood. They took pride in the fact that they owned their own home, that they were living the American dream, and that me as their son, like I was doing all of these things that, historically had been kept from my parents, right? Now, at the same time, I didn't know any of this shit. I'm a kid, right? Like my parents didn't, to their credit, my parents never made that like a crutch. They never made that something that was a part of the fabric of who we were. They just were raising me and my sister like in the environment that we were in. They didn't talk about it. They never brought it up. It was never something that was important. It was never something that was like really discussed, right? And to their credit. So at the time, I'm really good at tennis. My parents are putting all this time and effort into me being good at it. But for me, all I wanted to do was hang out with my friends. Like every other 11-year-old kid, every other 12-year-old kid, And at the time, like, skateboarding was my entire life. That's all I wanted to do was skate. All my friends in the neighborhood skated, like all the friends like that I went to school with, everybody was into skateboarding. Like Tony Hawk was like the big man back then. And, you know, that's all we wanted to do was skate. And there was an actual skate park in Arkansas, and it was called Canis Skate Park, right? And we used to go to this skate park, and, you know, we're 11, we're 12, and there's all these high school age kids there, and, you know, it's a bowl, and it was just such an amazing time. And this is like the mid 80s, right? Where skateboarding was just like really popping off. So every Saturday we would all get together, and some of the parents would drive us to this skate bowl. Well, one Saturday I get up and my mom's like, "Hey, do you have a tennis tournament?" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you gotta do this tennis tournament tonight." And all my friends are going to the skate park at like 1 o'clock. And this tennis tournament, like, I have to be there and start my first match at like 9, right? So I don't want to do this tennis match. Like, all I want to do is go skate with my friends. And I go to this tennis match, and I'm thinking to myself, this is a round robin tournament. If I win this first match, I have another match after that. If I win that match, I have another match. Like, round robin, you win, you continue to move through. So I'm like, hey, I'll just throw the match, right? Like, easy for me. I'll just go. I'll lose the match. I'll be home by 11. I can be at the skate park by 2 with my friends, right? It makes perfect sense to me in my 12-year-old mind. So the first match that I have is against this kid, and his name is Robert Bloat, Bloat. Now, Robert was this like skinny, frail kid, right? Like in the tennis circuit that I was in, like the group that I ran in, this was like the worst kid on the circuit. No disrespect to Robert Bloat if he ever, you know, watches this YouTube stream or whatever. But he was skinny, he was frail, he was weak, he was not good at tennis at all. And he was like the easiest kid that you could ever be matched up against, and we beat him regularly. Well, I get to this match and I draw Robert. So I get out there and like I throw the match in, you know, 45 minutes to an hour. The match is over. And as I'm coming off the court, his parents are like ecstatic. Like, they're literally ecstatic. Like, they're treating Robert as if he had just beat, you know, I don't know, Rafael Nadal or something. Like, whoever the most famous tennis player is right now. His parents are like, they're screaming, they're so excited. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like, I threw the match, you know, this isn't even real. But to them, it was a big win. Now, I had no idea that his parents, when this match was going on, they're talking shit to my parents. Like, they're telling my parents, like, man, like, you know, basically they're telling my parents that like Damien's fallen off. Like, you know, Robert's really gotten good. He's been taking private lessons. They're making it seem like their kid is really like, you know, putting the boots to me, right? And I also didn't have the historical context of what my parents had come through. And like, they're looking at me like I'm setting the black race back 25 years by throwing this match, because my parents know I threw this match, right? So I get up to the stands, and his parents are just like going crazy, and they ask me, they go, hey, we want to commemorate. I remember this like it was yesterday. They're like, we want to commemorate this moment. Can Robert take a picture with you? I could care less. I know I could beat this kid with like one hand tied behind my back. I just want to go skate. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go and I take this picture with this kid. He like puts his arm around me and he points like, I got him, right? And they take the picture, and I look in my mom, and she has tears like streaming down her face. And it's not tears of sadness. Like, she's fucking livid. She's livid. And I can see that like this is not a good thing, right? My parents are looking at this from like the perspective of everything they had gone through, the segregated schools. Like, I've just allowed this kid, I threw this match to this kid. His parents are like on cloud fucking 9. They're clowning my parents. This kid is pointing at me like he did something. And my parents are looking at me like, you have not only let us down, you have let us down in this moment, right? So we get in the car and we drive home in silence. Now I'm thinking to myself, as soon as we hit the house, I'm grabbing my clothes, I'm grabbing my skateboard, I'm catching up with my friends, I'm going to the skate park, right? We get home, I get out of the vehicle, I walk into the house. My mom makes a beeline right into the backyard. I don't even think anything of it. I go inside, change my clothes, and I start hearing this banging sound. Bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, what the hell is that, right? My phone rings, and it's my landline. Guys, this is like 1989, like no cell phones, right? My landline rings, and it's my neighbor across the street, another Robert, right? And he's like, your mom is outside destroying your skate ramp. Now, guys, I had worked all summer. My dad wanted nothing to do with skateboarding. He was like, I'm not buying any skateboards. I'm not building you a skate ramp. Whatever you want, you got to work for it and you pay for it yourself. I bought a lawnmower from the guy down the street for $15. I used my birthday money. I bought a lawnmower, and I took that lawnmower and I cut grass all over the neighborhood for an entire summer. Because a friend's dad said, hey, if you come up with $100, like I can build you this quarter pipe and I will like put it together for you. Like he was one of those parents where like he was the cool dad, right? He's like $100, you buy the materials, I do the work, like, you know, all the kids in the neighborhood can skate. So I did that. I worked all summer. You know, I pushed this lawnmower up and down the street like I fucking, you know, work my ass off cutting grass, $10 a lawn. My mom is out there with a 10-pound sledgehammer, and she's putting holes all through the skate ramp. And I go outside, and I'm just like screaming at my mom. I'm going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she's got tears streaming down her face, and she is just destroying the one thing that I was happy about, the one thing that I loved, because of her frustration. And then she goes in the house and she took every skateboard that I had and she put them in the yard and she put holes in them with the sledgehammer. And then she went into my bedroom and she took every t-shirt, every poster that I had on the wall, she ripped off the wall. Horrible experience. Like traumatizing. And I look back and I think that that is one of the moments in my life where it broke me. 11, 12 years old, it broke me. Think of all of the things that are tied to this story. Historical racism, segregation, not fulfilling the promise that your parents have, you know, that you represent for your parents. Right? Classism. Dismantling the hard work that your kids have tried to do for themselves. And like that moment, it drove such a wedge between me and my mother that you could probably draw a straight line from that to all of the trust issues that I've had with women throughout my life. The need to find women to attach myself to, always looking for approval. My inability to trust people. So many things in that moment have bled into every other area of my life. So going back to school and finally graduating after 28 years, it's a little bit of a victory over this horribly traumatic situation that I went through. I'm almost 50 years old, and it took me this long to allow myself to put myself in a situation where repeatedly I was afraid to fail and allow myself to push through and see it through to the end. This is one of the first times, one of the first things that I've been able to be successful at that I didn't give up on. I take a lot of pride in this moment. But the bigger pride is like getting over that trauma and allowing myself to actually do it. And so, like, just in sharing this story with you guys and talking to you guys about this, putting this out there, I can see other areas of my life where I still have blind spots. I still have holes in who I am that were created from that sledgehammer. But the education issue, allowing myself to still try and push through that, finally being in a position where I can be faithful and honorable to a woman that I love, allowing that woman to be close to me, allowing myself to trust her, feeling comfortable coming on here and putting this stuff out there. Those are all victories. So the message tonight for you guys is to not be afraid to verbalize the trauma that you've experienced in your life. Because all of us have experienced some form of trauma. And some of the trauma has led to repeated issues that you continually find yourself going through. And until you address it, until you are able to verbalize it, until you're able to talk about it without getting emotional, without falling apart, without breaking, you can't deal with it. So that's my message for you guys today. Okay? Let me see this comment here. All right. You cats be good, all right? Y'all be safe. Y'all be positive. And y'all push through your trauma, okay? Y'all take care. Be great.